The gunshot echoed across the canyon just as Emma Clarke finished closing up her father's trading post for the night, and she knew without question that someone was bleeding out there in the darkness of the New Mexico territory. She grabbed the oil lamp from the counter, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins, and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The October wind of 1876 bit at her cheeks as she stepped onto the porch, holding the lamp high to cast its golden glow across the dusty yard. The trading post sat at the edge of the small settlement of Red River Station, a collection of buildings that served travelers moving between Santa Fe and the mining camps further north. Her father had built this place with his own hands 15 years ago, and Emma had spent her 22 years learning every aspect of survival in this harsh, beautiful land. Movement caught her eye near the hitching post. A horse stood there, its reins dragging in the dirt, and slumped against the wooden rail was a man. Even in the lamplight, she could see the dark stain spreading across his left shoulder, soaking through his shirt and vest. His hat had fallen to the ground, revealing dark hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. Emma didn't hesitate. She set the lamp on the porch rail and hurried down the steps, her skirts kicking up dust. "Can you walk?" she called out as she approached. The man lifted his head, and even in his obvious pain, she noticed his eyes were a striking gray, almost silver in the lamplight. "I can try," he managed, his voice rough but determined. He couldn't have been much older than her, maybe 25 or 26, with a strong jaw shadowed by a few days of stubble. "Put your good arm around my shoulders," Emma instructed, positioning herself on his right side. She was tall for a woman, nearly 5 feet 8 inches, and strong from years of helping her father with the heavy work around the trading post. The man was substantially bigger, but she braced herself and helped him stand. He groaned but didn't cry out, which told her something about his character. "Who shot you?" she asked as they made their slow way toward the building. "3 men tried to rob me about 5 miles south," he said, pausing to catch his breath. "I got away, but not before one of them got off a lucky shot." Emma's mind raced as they climbed the porch steps. Her father was away on a supply run to Santa Fe and wouldn't be back for another week. Her younger brother Daniel had gone with him, which meant she was alone. The nearest doctor was in Taos, a full day's ride away, and this man would likely bleed to death long before anyone could fetch help. "I can tend to that wound," she said with more confidence than she felt. "My mother was a nurse during the war. She taught me everything she knew before she passed." The man nodded, his face pale now. They made it through the door and Emma guided him to the back room where the family lived. She helped him sit in the sturdy chair near the table, then hurried to gather supplies. Her mother's medical kit was stored in a trunk, and Emma retrieved it along with clean cloths, a basin of water, and the bottle of whiskey her father kept for emergencies. "What's your name?" she asked as she set everything on the table and positioned the lamp to give her the best light. "Cole Brennan," he said, "and I'm much obliged for your help, miss." "Emma Clarke, and you can thank me after I get that bullet out." She moved behind him. "I need to take off your vest and shirt." Cole nodded and started to shrug out of his vest with his good arm. Emma helped him ease it off, careful not to jostle the wounded shoulder too much. The shirt was more difficult. The fabric was stuck to the wound with dried blood, and she had to cut it away with her mother's surgical scissors. As the cloth fell away, she could see the entry wound clearly, about 2 inches below his collarbone. Blood still seeped from it, though not as quickly as it must have been flowing earlier. "The bullet went straight through," Cole said through gritted teeth. "I felt it come out the back." Emma moved around to check and found he was right. The exit wound in his shoulder blade was larger and more ragged, but at least she wouldn't have to dig for the bullet. Small mercies. She soaked a cloth in the water and began cleaning the wounds, working as gently as she could. Cole's muscles tensed under her hands and she could feel the heat of his skin, the solid strength of him even in his weakened state. "This is going to hurt," she warned, reaching for the whiskey bottle. "The wound needs to be disinfected." "Do what you need to do," Cole said, his jaw set with determination. Emma poured the whiskey liberally over both wounds. Cole sucked in a sharp breath and his good hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, but he didn't make a sound. She worked quickly, using her mother's techniques to clean away the dirt and debris that had gotten into the wounds. The lamplight flickered as she worked, casting dancing shadows across the room. Outside, she could hear the wind picking up, rattling the shutters. Once the wounds were clean, she threaded a needle with silk thread from her mother's kit. Her hands were steady as she began to stitch the exit wound, which was the more serious of the two. Cole's breathing was harsh and uneven, but he sat still as stone, letting her work. Emma found herself acutely aware of every detail in the warm circle of lamplight, the smell of whiskey and blood, the solid presence of this stranger who had stumbled into her life. "You're good at this," Cole said after a long silence. His voice was strained but sincere. "My mother made sure I could handle any emergency," Emma replied, her fingers moving with practiced precision. "Out here, you never know when you'll need such skills. There was a family passing through last spring and their little girl fell from their wagon, broke her arm in 2 places. I set it and splinted it, and her father said the doctor in Denver told them I'd done as good a job as any physician." "Where did your mother learn?" Cole asked. She could tell he was trying to distract himself from the pain. "She worked in field hospitals during the war. Saw terrible things, saved countless lives. She always said that knowing how to heal was the most important skill a person could have." Emma finished the last stitch on the back wound and moved around to work on the entry wound in his chest. She had to lean close now, her face just inches from his, and she could feel his breath, see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes. "Is she here?" Cole asked. "I'd like to thank her. She died 3 years ago, cholera outbreak." Emma kept her voice steady, though the loss still ached like a fresh bruise. "Half the settlement got sick. She worked herself to exhaustion caring for everyone, and then she caught it herself. She was gone in 4 days. "I'm sorry," Cole said, and the genuine compassion in his voice made Emma look up and meet his eyes. There was something in his gaze, a depth of understanding that told her he knew what it meant to lose someone important. "Thank you," she said softly, then returned her attention to the wound. The entry hole was smaller and cleaner, requiring fewer stitches. She worked in silence for several minutes, aware of the intimacy of the moment, of her fingers on his skin, of the warm glow of the lamp creating a private world that held just the two of them. As she tied off the final stitch, her fingers brushed against his, and a jolt of something electric passed between them. Emma froze, and so did Cole. For a heartbeat, they simply looked at each other, the connection between them suddenly palpable and undeniable. Then Emma cleared her throat and pulled back, reaching for the clean bandages. "I need to wrap this to keep the wounds clean and protected," she said, her voice not quite steady. Cole nodded, and she could see a faint flush on his cheeks that had nothing to do with fever. Emma stood and began wrapping the bandage around his shoulder and across his chest, having to reach around him to pass the cloth from hand to hand. With each pass, she was aware of how close they were, of the warmth of his body, of the way his eyes followed her movements. "You'll need to stay off that arm for at least a week," she told him as she secured the bandage. "And the dressing will need to be changed daily to prevent infection. You should stay here at least a few days until I'm sure you're healing properly." "I don't want to impose," Cole said, though his relief was evident. "You've already done more than enough." "Nonsense. I have spare rooms for travelers. My father runs this as a trading post in Way Station. You'll stay until you're well enough to ride safely." Emma began cleaning up the medical supplies, putting things back in order. "Besides, you said 3 men tried to rob you. They might still be out there looking for you." Cole's expression darkened. "They might be. They were after the money I'm carrying. I sold my family's ranch in Texas, and I'm heading north to start fresh in Colorado. Everything I have in the world is in my saddlebags." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October night. "Then you definitely need to stay here where it's safe. I have a rifle and I know how to use it. This building is solid stone built to withstand trouble. You live here alone? Cole asked, concern evident in his voice. My father and brother are away on business, but they'll be back in a week. Until then, yes, I'm alone. I can handle myself. She saw his worried expression and added, I've been managing this place by myself for years when father travels. I'm not some helpless girl who needs protecting. I can see that, Cole said with a slight smile that transformed his face, making him almost boyishly handsome despite the pain he must be feeling. You probably just saved my life, Miss Clarke. I'm not questioning your competence. Emma found herself smiling back. Good, now you need rest. Let me help you to one of the guest rooms. She assisted him to his feet, and together they made their way down the short hallway to one of the 3 spare rooms the Clarke family kept for travelers. The room was simple but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a chair. Emma helped Cole sit on the edge of the bed, and he looked up at her with those remarkable gray eyes. Thank you, Emma, he said, using her given name for the first time. I know we just met, but I feel like I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, she replied softly. But you're welcome. Try to get some sleep. I'll bring you some food and water in a bit. She left him there and returned to the main room, her heart beating faster than it should. Something had happened in that lamplight circle, something she couldn't quite name but could definitely feel. She'd tended to injured people before, but never had she felt such a powerful connection to someone, especially a complete stranger. Emma prepared a simple meal of bread, cheese, and cold beef, along with a pot of strong tea. When she returned to Cole's room, she found him still sitting on the edge of the bed, looking exhausted. She helped him eat, noting that his color was better now and his hands were steadier. Tell me about your ranch, she said as he ate. The one you sold. Cole's expression grew distant. It was my father's place, down in the hill country west of Austin. Beautiful land, good grass, plenty of water. My father built it from nothing and my mother made it a home. They both died last year influenza within days of each other. My older brother inherited the place, being the firstborn. He gave me my share of the value, but there was nothing left for me there. Too many memories and no real future, so I decided to start over. I'm sorry about your parents, Emma said. Losing both of them so close together must have been devastating. It was. My brother and I have never been particularly close, and after they were gone, there was nothing holding me there. He has a wife and children, a whole life on that ranch. I was just in the way. Cole took a sip of tea, his eyes meeting hers. What about you? You mentioned a father and brother. What's your story? Emma settled into the chair, surprised to find herself wanting to share with this stranger. My father came out here after the war. He'd seen enough fighting and death, and he wanted a quiet life in a place where he could build something good. He married my mother in St. Louis, and they came west together. This trading post has been their life's work. Daniel, my brother, is 18 now, learning the business. Father wants him to take over eventually. And what do you want? Cole asked, his gaze intent. The question caught Emma off guard. Nobody had ever asked her that before. I don't know, she admitted. I've never really thought about it. This is my home, my life. I suppose I always assumed I'd stay here and help run things until I married, and then I'd help my husband with whatever his work was. Is there a husband in the picture? Cole asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, that was too forward. No, it's fine, Emma said, feeling her cheeks warm. There's no one. There was a man a few years back who wanted to court me. He owned a ranch about 20 miles north. But he wanted a wife who would stay home and tend to the house while he worked, someone quiet and obedient. That's not who I am. No, I don't imagine it is, Cole said with that smile again. You're someone who can stitch up a bullet wound by lamplight without flinching. That takes strength and courage. Emma felt something flutter in her chest at his words. You should rest now, she said, standing up. I'll check on you later. She took the empty dishes and left the room, closing the door gently behind her. Back in the main living area, she sat down at the table and tried to collect her thoughts. The events of the evening had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Not just the emergency of tending to Cole's wound, but the way she'd felt during those quiet moments in the lamplight, the touch of their fingers, the connection in his eyes. Emma had always been practical, focused on the day-to-day work of surviving and helping her family thrive in this harsh land. She'd never had time for romantic notions or foolish dreams. But something about Cole Brennan had stirred something in her, something she'd kept locked away because it seemed frivolous and dangerous. She checked the doors and windows, making sure everything was secure, then took her father's rifle from its place over the fireplace and loaded it. Cole had said 3 men were after him, and while she doubted they would track him here in the dark, it paid to be prepared. She set the rifle within easy reach and settled into her father's chair with some mending, though her mind was far from the task at hand. The night passed slowly. Emma checked on Cole twice more, finding him sleeping restlessly, his face flushed with the beginnings of fever. This was to be expected with such a wound, but she watched him carefully, ready to act if the fever grew too high. She sat in the chair in his room for a while, listening to his breathing, studying his face in the dim light of the turned-down lamp. He was handsome, there was no denying that, but it was more than physical attraction she felt. There was something about his presence, his quiet strength, the way he'd endured the pain without complaint, the genuine interest he'd shown in her life and her dreams, even dreams she hadn't known she had until he asked about them. As dawn broke over the New Mexico landscape, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Emma made coffee and prepared breakfast. She heard Cole stirring and went to check on him, finding him trying to sit up with obvious difficulty. "Let me help," she said, moving to his side. She adjusted the pillows behind him so he could sit up more comfortably, her hands gentle but efficient. "How do you feel?" she asked, placing her palm against his forehead. He was warm but not dangerously so. "Like I got shot," Cole said with a weak attempt at humor. "But better than last night, thanks to you." Emma brought him breakfast and watched to make sure he ate. He was a good patient, following her instructions without complaint, and she found herself enjoying his company. They talked as he ate, sharing stories about their lives, their hopes, their experiences in this wild land. "My mother used to say that everything happens for a reason," Cole said as Emma changed his bandages later that morning. The wounds looked clean with no signs of infection yet, which was encouraging. "I was angry about being shot, furious that those men tried to take everything from me, but if it hadn't happened, I never would have met you." Emma's hands stilled on the bandage. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Cole said, his gray eyes steady on hers. "I know you're brave and capable and kind. I know you didn't hesitate to help a stranger, even though it could have been dangerous. I know you have gentle hands and a quick mind." "That's more than I knew about most people I've spent years around." Emma finished securing the bandage, her heart racing. "You're speaking foolishness. It's probably the fever talking." "Maybe," Cole conceded. "Or maybe getting shot has a way of making a man see what's important. Life's too short and too uncertain out here to waste time pretending we don't feel things." Emma didn't know how to respond to that, so she busied herself with cleaning up the medical supplies. But his words stayed with her throughout the morning as she went about her chores, opening the trading post for business, helping the few customers who came by, tending to the animals and preparing meals. The day passed in a strange rhythm, with Emma dividing her time between her normal responsibilities and checking on Cole. Each time she entered his room, she felt that same flutter of anticipation, the same awareness that something significant was happening between them. They talked more, sharing deeper thoughts and feelings, the kind of conversations that usually took months to develop but seemed natural and right in the quiet intimacy of the sickroom. By evening, Cole's fever had risen slightly, and Emma grew concerned. She made him drink willow bark tea for the fever and applied cool compresses to his forehead. She stayed with him through the night, dozing in the chair beside his bed, waking every hour or so to check on him. In the darkest hours before dawn, Cole's fever broke. Emma woke to find him watching her, his eyes clear and alert. "You stayed," he said softly. "Of course I stayed," Emma replied. "You needed someone to watch over you?" "Emma," Cole said, reaching out with his good hand. She took it without thinking, and his fingers closed around hers, warm and strong. "I know this is sudden and probably crazy, but I need you to know something. From the moment I saw you in that lamplight, holding that lamp high like some kind of angel come to save me, I felt something I've never felt before, like coming home, like finding something I didn't even know I was looking for." Emma's throat tightened with emotion. "Cole, you're still recovering. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have," he insisted. "I'm not saying I expect anything from you, I know we just met, but I need you to know that you've already changed something in me. Whatever happens, wherever I end up going, I'll never forget you, Emma Clarke." Emma looked down at their joined hands, at the way her fingers fit perfectly with his. She thought about the rancher who had wanted to court her, the man who saw her as a convenient wife to manage his household. She thought about all the days and years stretching ahead, managing the trading post, helping her father and brother, living a safe, predictable life. And then she looked at Cole, this stranger who had stumbled into her life bleeding and desperate, this man who had somehow seen her, really seen her, in just one day. She thought about the connection she'd felt in that lamplight circle, the way their fingers had touched and created a spark that still burned in her chest. "I need you to know something too," she said quietly. "I've never felt this way before either. It terrifies me because it doesn't make sense. We don't know each other, not really, but when I'm with you I feel like I can breathe deeper, like the world has more color. I don't know what that means or what we should do about it, but you're not alone in feeling it." Cole squeezed her hand gently. "Then let's find out together. I don't have to be in Colorado by any particular time. I could stay here a while, get to know you properly. Court you if you'll allow it. See if this feeling between us is real or just a moment of intensity born from circumstances." Emma smiled, feeling something blossom in her chest, something that felt like hope and joy and terrifying possibility all at once. "I'd like that," she said. "I'd like that very much." The next days fell into a pattern. Cole's wound healed steadily under Emma's careful attention. The fever didn't return, and the stitches held. As his strength returned, he began to get up and move around, first just around his room, then venturing out into the main living area, and finally out to the trading post itself. Emma found excuses to be near him, and he found reasons to seek her out. They talked constantly, discovering shared interests and values, laughing at each other's stories, falling into an easy comfort that felt like they'd known each other for years rather than days. On the fourth day after Cole's arrival, Emma was working in the trading post when three rough-looking men rode up. She recognized the type immediately: drifters, probably outlaws, definitely dangerous. Her hand moved casually toward the shotgun she kept under the counter. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" she asked, her voice calm and professional. The leader, a heavy-set man with a scarred face, dismounted and came to the counter. "We're looking for a man. Tall, dark hair, would have been wounded. Seen anyone like that?" Emma's heart pounded, but she kept her expression neutral. "Lots of people come through here. Can't say I remember anyone specific. What's your business with him?" "He owes us money," another man said, also dismounting. This one was lean and mean-looking, with cold eyes that made Emma's skin crawl. "Considerable money, and we aim to collect." "Well, I haven't seen anyone wounded come through here," Emma lied smoothly. "You might try asking in Red River Station proper. I just run this trading post." The scarred man looked around suspiciously. "You here alone?" "My father and brother are in the back," Emma said, her hand now resting on the shotgun. "They're always here. We don't take chances with strangers." It was a calculated risk, but the men seemed to accept it. They bought some supplies, all the while looking around as if trying to spot some evidence of Cole's presence. Emma remained calm, making idle conversation, giving them no reason to suspect anything. Finally, they mounted up and rode off. Emma waited until they were out of sight, then rushed to find Cole. He was in his room and she quickly explained what had happened. "They're the ones who shot me," Cole confirmed, his face grim. "They must have tracked me here after all." "We need to be careful," Emma said. "They might come back, especially if they ask around in town and learn that my father and brother are actually away." Cole stood up, testing his wounded shoulder carefully. "I can handle a gun if I need to. I won't let anything happen to you, Emma." "We'll protect each other," Emma corrected. "This is my home and my fight too." That night, they took turns keeping watch. Emma insisted that Cole rest as much as possible to continue healing, but he was equally insistent that she not bear the burden alone. They compromised, taking shifts, and Emma found a strange comfort in the shared responsibility, in knowing Cole was there. Nothing happened that night or the next day, and Emma began to hope that the three men had moved on. But on the 6th night after Cole's arrival, she woke from an uneasy sleep to the sound of horses outside. She grabbed her rifle and moved quickly to the window. In the moonlight, she could see 3 figures moving around the building. Her heart hammered as she realized they were trying to surround the trading post. Emma moved silently to Cole's room and shook him awake. "They're here," she whispered. Cole was on his feet instantly, reaching for his gun belt. Together they moved through the dark building, checking the windows and doors. Everything was locked and barred, but Emma knew that wouldn't stop determined men for long. "Stay away from the windows," Cole said quietly. "They might start shooting." As if his words had summoned it, a voice called out from the darkness. "We know you're in there, Brennan. Come out and we might let the girl live." Cole moved toward the door, but Emma grabbed his good arm. "Don't you dare," she hissed. "They'll kill us both no matter what." "I won't let them hurt you because of me," Cole said, his face anguished in the dim light. "Then we fight together," Emma said firmly. She raised her voice, calling out the window. "This is private property and you're trespassing. Leave now or I'll shoot." The response was a gunshot that shattered one of the shutters. Emma and Cole both dropped to the floor as more shots followed, splintering wood and ricocheting off the stone walls. "We need to let them know we're serious," Emma said, crawling to a window. She aimed carefully and fired, not trying to hit anyone but sending a clear message that they were armed and ready to defend themselves. The shooting stopped for a moment, and Emma could hear the men arguing outside. Then the scarred leader called out again. "We can wait you out. Or we can burn you out. Your choice?" Emma's blood ran cold. Fire was every settler's nightmare, and these stone walls wouldn't matter if the roof caught. She looked at Cole, seeing her own fear reflected in his eyes. "We need help," she said. "Red River Station is only a mile away. If we can hold them off until dawn, someone might notice the trouble and come to investigate." "That's hours away," Cole said, "and they might not wait that long." But luck was with them. The sound of approaching horses made everyone freeze. Emma risked a glance out the window and saw at least 6 riders coming up the road from town, carrying torches. The night watchman from Red River Station was in the lead, along with several townsmen she recognized. The 3 outlaws saw they were outnumbered and made a run for it, spurring their horses into the darkness. The watchman fired several shots after them, though Emma doubted he hit anything in the dark. She and Cole went out to meet their rescuers. The watchman, an older man named Tom Grierson, looked them over with concern. "Emma, you all right? We heard shooting and figured there was trouble. Who were those men?" "Outlaws," Emma explained. "They tried to rob Mr. Brennan here about a week ago and shot him. I've been tending to his wound." "They tracked him here and tried to force their way in." Tom nodded grimly. "We'll get word to the marshal in Taos. Those men are probably long gone by now, but we'll keep watch. You sure you're all right staying out here alone?" "I'm not alone," Emma said, glancing at Cole. "Mr. Brennan is staying until he's fully recovered, and my father will be back in just a few days." The men stayed for another hour, making sure the outlaws were truly gone, then rode back to town. Emma and Cole returned to the trading post, both of them shaking now that the danger had passed. "That was too close," Cole said, sinking into a chair. His face was pale, and Emma realized the excitement had taken a toll on his still healing body. "Come on," she said gently. "Back to bed, you need rest." She helped him to his room and made sure he was comfortable, checking his bandages to ensure the exertion hadn't reopened his wounds. The stitches had held, but the area around them was red and slightly swollen. "Emma," Cole said as she was about to leave. "Stay, please. I don't want to be alone right now, and I don't think you should be either." Emma hesitated only a moment before pulling the chair close to his bedside and settling into it. Cole reached out and took her hand, and they sat in silence, drawing comfort from each other's presence. "I meant what I said before," Cole said after a while. "I won't let anything happen to you, even if it means putting myself in danger." "And I meant what I said too," Emma replied. "We're in this together. I'm not some helpless female who needs you to sacrifice yourself for her. We're partners, equals. That's the only way this works." Cole smiled, his thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of her hand. "Partners, I like that. I've never thought about marriage that way before, but it makes sense." Emma's breath caught. "Marriage." "Eventually, I hope," Cole said, his gray eyes serious. "I know it's early to speak of such things, but Emma, I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have fallen, and I want you to know my intentions are honorable. I want to court you properly with your father's permission when he returns. I want to build a life with you if you'll have me." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, though whether from joy or fear or overwhelming emotion, she couldn't say. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "It's terrifying and wonderful and completely insane." "The best things usually are," Cole said, squeezing her hand. "We don't have to rush anything. We have time to figure this out together." Emma stayed with him until he fell asleep, then returned to her own room as dawn broke over the landscape. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind whirling with everything that had happened. A week ago, she'd had a simple, predictable life. Now everything had changed, turned upside down by a wounded stranger and a moment of connection in the lamplight. The next few days were quieter. Cole's wound continued to heal, and his strength returned rapidly. He began helping around the trading post, doing light work with his good arm, learning the rhythms of Emma's life. They fell into an easy partnership, working side by side, talking and laughing, discovering new layers to each other. Emma found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, admiring the way he moved, the concentration on his face when he was focused on a task, the gentleness in his hands when he handled the animals or helped her with delicate work. She noticed how he treated everyone who came into the trading post with courtesy and respect, how he listened more than he talked, how he seemed to see the good in people. And she noticed the way he looked at her, like she was something precious and remarkable, like he couldn't quite believe his good fortune in finding her. It made her feel beautiful and capable and cherished in ways she'd never experienced before. On the 10th day after Cole's arrival, Emma's father and brother returned from Santa Fe. Emma heard their wagon before she saw it and went out to meet them, Cole following behind her. Her father, Robert Clarke, was a tall, lean man in his 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Daniel, her brother, was a younger, less weathered version of their father, with the same brown hair and hazel eyes as Emma. "Emma," Daniel called out, jumping down from the wagon and pulling her into a hug. "We made good time coming back, got excellent prices for the furs and—" He trailed off, noticing Cole for the first time. "Who's this?" Robert Clarke's eyes moved from Cole to Emma and back again, his expression unreadable. "Emma, what's going on?" Emma took a breath and explained everything. How Cole had arrived wounded, how she'd tended to him, how the 3 outlaws had come looking for him, how they'd defended the trading post together. She was honest about all of it, knowing her father would respect the truth more than any attempt to sugarcoat the situation. When she finished, Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to Cole. "Mr. Brennan, I appreciate you helping my daughter defend this place. But I think we need to have a conversation. Man to man," Cole nodded. "Yes, sir, I'd welcome that." The two men walked off together, leaving Emma anxious and Daniel full of questions. She swatted at her brother as he peppered her with inquiries about Cole, about whether she was sweet on him, about what their father would say. "Hush," she finally said. "Let father talk to him, it'll all work out how it's meant to." But inside she was terrified. What if her father forbade Cole from staying? What if he sent him away? She just found this connection, this possibility of a different kind of life, and she couldn't bear the thought of losing it. The men were gone for nearly an hour. When they returned, both of them looked serious but not angry. Emma tried to read their expressions and failed. "Emma," her father said, "Mr. Brennan has asked permission to court you properly. He's told me about his circumstances, his plans, his intentions. What I want to know is what you want." Emma looked at Cole, at his hopeful, anxious expression, then back at her father. "I want to see where this goes," she said honestly. "I know it's fast and I know it seems crazy, but father, there's something real here, something worth exploring. I'm asking you to trust me and give us a chance." Robert studied her face for a long moment, then sighed. "You're 22 years old, Emma, old enough to make your own choices. And truth be told, I've been worried about you, stuck out here helping us run this place with no prospects for your own future. If this young man makes you happy and treats you right, I won't stand in your way. But," he added, his voice stern now, "we do this properly. He'll stay on here and work for room and board. You'll get to know each other without rushing into anything. And if, in a few months, you both still feel the same way, we'll talk about marriage." "Agreed, agreed," Emma and Cole said together, then smiled at each other. The following months were among the happiest of Emma's life. Cole proved himself to be a hard worker, quick to learn and willing to do whatever was needed around the trading post. His shoulder healed completely, leaving only a pale scar that Emma would trace sometimes with her fingers, remembering that first night in the Lamplight. Cole was good with the customers, fair in his dealings, and genuinely interested in learning every aspect of the business. Robert Clarke came to respect, and even like the young man, appreciating his work ethic and his obvious devotion to Emma. Daniel thought Cole was wonderful, following him around like a puppy and learning everything he could from him. But it was the quiet moments between Emma and Cole that she treasured most. Evening walks in the cool October and November air, talking about their dreams and plans. Sitting together by the fire while Emma mended and Cole read aloud from whatever books they had on hand. Working side by side in the trading post, their movements synchronized like they'd been partners for years, instead of months. They talked about the future, about what kind of life they wanted to build together. Cole was honest about his modest means. The money from his family's ranch would be enough to buy land and build a small house, but nothing grand. Emma didn't care about grand. She cared about partnership, about building something together with someone who saw her as an equal. "I was thinking," Cole said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of crimson and gold. "What if we stayed here? I know I originally planned to go to Colorado, but I've come to love this place. Your father mentioned he might want to expand, maybe open another trading post further north. What if we ran that together, made it ours?" Emma's heart soared. She'd been dreading the thought of leaving her family, her home, the land she'd grown up on. "You'd want to stay, you'd give up your plans for me." "I'm not giving up anything," Cole said, taking her hand. "I'm choosing what I want instead of just running away from what I lost. There's a difference. I want to build a life with you, Emma, wherever that is. And if it can be here near your family on land you love, then that's even better." As winter settled over New Mexico, Cole asked Emma to marry him properly with a ring he'd bought from a jeweler in Taos. It wasn't fancy, just a simple gold band with a small turquoise stone, but Emma loved it. She said yes without hesitation, and they planned a spring wedding. The winter months flew by in a flurry of preparation. Emma and her mother's old friends from the settlement made her wedding dress, a simple but beautiful gown of cream-colored cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Cole and Robert worked together to build a small house on a piece of land about 2 miles from the trading post, the perfect spot for the new trading post they planned to open. The wedding took place on a brilliant April day in 1877, with the entire community of Red River Station in attendance. They were married by the circuit preacher who came through once a month, and the celebration lasted well into the night. Emma had never felt so happy, standing beside Cole and promising to love and cherish him for the rest of her life. Their wedding night was spent in the new house Cole had built, and Emma marveled at how right it felt to be there with him, how natural and good. They lay together in the darkness, talking and laughing and making plans, and Emma thought back to that night in October when a wounded stranger had stumbled into her life. You ever think about how different things would be if you hadn't been shot? She asked, tracing the scar on his shoulder with gentle fingers. All the time, Cole admitted. If I'd taken a different road, if those outlaws had missed, if I'd made it to the next town instead of yours, every little choice led me to you. It makes me believe in fate, or God, Emma said softly. My mother used to say God works in mysterious ways. I think she was right. They settled into married life with the same easy partnership they'd found from the beginning. The new trading post opened that summer, and Emma and Cole ran it together, sharing the work and the profits equally. They became known throughout the territory for their fair dealings and their kindness, and the business thrived. Emma's father officially made Cole a partner in the family business, recognizing his contributions and his commitment. Daniel continued to learn from both Cole and Robert, growing into a capable young man who would eventually take over the original trading post when Robert was ready to retire. In February of 1878, Emma discovered she was pregnant. She told Cole one evening as they were closing up the trading post, and his joy was so pure and genuine that it brought tears to her eyes. He swept her into his arms, careful not to squeeze too hard, and buried his face in her hair. "We're going to be parents," he said wonderingly. "We're going to have a family." "Are you scared?" Emma asked, because she was terrified and thrilled in equal measure. "Terrified," Cole admitted, "but also excited. We'll figure it out together just like we've figured out everything else." Their son was born in October of 1878, exactly 2 years after that fateful night when Cole had arrived wounded at her door. They named him James Robert Brennan, after both their fathers, and he was a healthy, loud baby with his father's gray eyes and his mother's dark hair. Emma's labor had been long and difficult, but she'd had her father's wife's sister, who had moved to Red River Station and served as the settlement's midwife, to help her through it. Cole had stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and encouraging her, and when the baby was finally born and placed in Emma's arms, she looked up to see tears streaming down her husband's face. "He's perfect," Cole whispered, touching the baby's tiny hand with one careful finger. "You're perfect. I love you both so much." Motherhood transformed Emma in ways she hadn't expected. She'd always been competent and capable, but now she discovered reserves of patience and tenderness she hadn't known she possessed. She loved watching Cole with their son, seeing the gentle way he held the baby, the wonder in his eyes as he watched James sleep or eat or make his small baby noises. They adjusted their work schedule to accommodate the baby, with Emma taking the mornings and Cole taking the afternoons, so one of them was always with James. Their house was filled with laughter and love and the comfortable chaos of family life. As James grew from baby to toddler, Emma and Cole's love deepened and matured. The passionate intensity of their early connection had settled into something even better, a profound partnership built on trust, respect, and genuine affection. They still had their moments of romance, stolen kisses in the storage room of the trading post, nights when they lay awake talking after James was asleep. But there was also the comfortable ease of two people who knew each other completely and loved what they knew. In 1880, Emma became pregnant again, and this time she was less afraid, more confident in what her body could do. Their daughter was born in June of 1881, a beautiful baby girl they named Caroline Margaret after both their mothers. James, now 2.5, was fascinated by his new sister and wanted to help with everything, which was both adorable and occasionally challenging. Cole proved to be a wonderful father, patient and loving with both children. Emma often watched him with them and marveled at how lucky she was. He played with them, taught them, comforted them when they were hurt or scared, and shared the work of caring for them equally with Emma. The trading post continued to thrive. They expanded the building twice to accommodate their growing inventory and customer base. They became known as the best place to trade between Santa Fe and the mining camps, and travelers would often go out of their way to stop at Brennan's trading post, as it had come to be known. Robert Clarke retired in 1883, leaving the original trading post entirely to Daniel, who had married a sweet young woman from Taos and was starting his own family. Robert spent his time building furniture and helping with his grandchildren, content to let the younger generation take over. Life wasn't always easy. There were hard winters when business was slow and money was tight. There were childhood illnesses that terrified Emma and Cole, sitting up all night with a feverish child and praying for the fever to break. There were occasional troubles with outlaws or hostile travelers, though nothing as serious as that first confrontation. But through it all, Emma and Cole faced everything together. They'd built something real and lasting, a partnership that went beyond romance into something deeper and more profound. They were truly a team, each one's strengths complementing the other's weaknesses, each one supporting the other through difficulties and celebrating the other's triumphs. In 1885, when James was 7 and Caroline was 4, Emma discovered she was pregnant for a third time. This pregnancy was harder than the others had been. She was 31 now, not old by any means, but not as young as she'd been with the first two. She tired easily and suffered from persistent nausea. Cole worried about her constantly, taking on more of the work around the trading post and the house, making sure she rested, bringing her special treats to tempt her appetite. Emma loved him for his care but also chafed at being treated like an invalid. "I'm pregnant, not dying," she told him one evening when he'd insisted she sit down instead of helping with the dinner dishes. "I know," Cole said, sitting down beside her and taking her hand. "But you're carrying our child and that's important and hard work. Let me take care of you for once. You're always taking care of everyone else." Emma softened at his words. "We take care of each other, that's how this works." "Exactly," Cole agreed. "So right now, it's my turn to do a little more. Let me." Their third child, another son they named Thomas William, was born in January of 1886 after a labor that was mercifully shorter than the first two. He was a big baby, healthy and strong, with dark hair like his mother and his siblings. James and Caroline were thrilled with their new brother, though James at 7 considered himself far too grown up for baby things. Caroline, on the other hand, wanted to help with everything and had to be gently redirected when her enthusiasm threatened to overwhelm the baby. Emma recovered quickly from the birth, and soon life settled into a new rhythm with 3 children. The house was louder and more chaotic, but also filled with even more love and laughter. Cole would often look around at his family, at the wife he adored and the children they'd created together, and shake his head in wonder at how blessed he was. "What are you thinking?" Emma would ask when she caught him staring. "Just remembering," he'd say. "Remembering a night 12 years ago when I got shot and stumbled into the best thing that ever happened to me." Emma would smile and kiss him then, remembering too. Remembering the lamplight and the touch of their fingers and the moment when everything changed, the children grew, as children do. James became a thoughtful, serious boy who loved books and learning. Caroline was bright and energetic, always into something, always asking questions. Thomas was the baby, sweet-natured and content, happy to tag along with his older siblings. Emma taught all 3 of them to read and write, using the books she'd learned from and others they ordered from back east. Cole taught them practical skills: how to ride, how to care for animals, how to handle money and conduct business fairly. Together, they raised their children to be good, honest, capable people. In 1890, when James was 12, he asked his parents about that first night, the night his father had been shot. He'd heard bits and pieces of the story over the years, but now he wanted to know everything. Emma and Cole sat down with all three children that evening and told them the whole story. They talked about the danger and the fear, but also about the connection that had formed in that lamplight circle, about how sometimes the most difficult circumstances can lead to the most beautiful outcomes. "So if those bad men hadn't shot you, you never would have met Mama?" Caroline asked, her eyes wide. "That's right," Cole said. "I would have ridden right past this place and never known what I was missing." "I'm glad they shot you then," Thomas said solemnly, then looked horrified. "I mean, I'm not glad you got hurt, but I'm glad you found Mama." Everyone laughed, and Cole ruffled Thomas's hair. "I know what you mean, son, and you're right. That wound brought me to the most important moment of my life." Emma reached over and took Cole's hand, the same way she had that first night when their fingers touched over his bandages. After all these years, that connection was still there, as strong as ever. The 1890s brought changes. The frontier was becoming less wild, more settled. Railroads cut through the territory, bringing more people and more commerce. Red River Station grew from a small settlement into a proper town with a school, a church, several stores, and even a small hotel. Brennan's trading post remained one of the most successful businesses in the area. James began working there full-time after finishing his schooling, showing a natural aptitude for business. Caroline was interested in medicine and began apprenticing with the town's doctor, a crusty old man who was impressed by her quick mind and steady hands. Thomas, still young, was proving to be a talented horseman and rancher, spending much of his time helping on the small ranch they'd acquired adjacent to their property. In 1895, Emma's father died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 72. It was a hard loss, but also a peaceful one. Robert Clarke had lived to see his children and grandchildren thriving, his business successful, his family happy. Emma took comfort in that, and in the knowledge that her father had approved of and loved Cole like a son. Daniel took over full control of the original trading post, though he and Cole continued to work together and support each other. The Clarke and Brennan families remained close, with cousins growing up together and holidays spent in joyful chaos with too much food and too many children running around. As the new century approached, Emma found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She was 45 now, with silver threads in her dark hair and laugh lines around her eyes. Cole was 48, his dark hair graying at the temples, his face weathered by years of working outdoors. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they'd been that night in 1876, in the Lamplight, when everything had changed. The love between them had only grown stronger with time, deepened by shared experiences and challenges overcome together. In 1898, James married a young woman from Taos named Sarah, and they started their own family, giving Emma and Cole their first grandchild in 1899, a boy they named Cole James. Emma cried when she held her grandson for the first time, thinking about the cycle of life and love, about how that one night had led to all of this. Caroline decided not to marry, choosing instead to pursue her medical studies. She traveled to Denver to attend medical school, one of the first women to do so, and returned to Red River Station as Dr. Caroline Brennan, the town's first resident physician. Emma and Cole were fiercely proud of her, though they missed her during the years she was away. Thomas married in 1900, a rancher's daughter from Colorado, and they built a house on the ranch land, expanding the cattle operation. He was a natural stockman, and his business thrived. As the 20th century began, Emma and Cole found themselves entering a new phase of life. Their children were grown and building their own lives. The trading post was successful and well-established. They had more time now, time to simply enjoy each other's company, to take long walks in the evening, to sit on their porch and watch the sun set over the New Mexico landscape they both loved. "We've had a good life," Cole said one evening in the spring of 1901. They were sitting on their porch, holding hands as they'd done countless times over the past 25 years. "We have," Emma agreed. "Better than I ever imagined possible." "Do you remember that first night?" Cole asked. "When you bandaged my shoulder by lamplight and our fingers touched?" "Every detail," Emma said. "I remember thinking my life was about to change completely, and I was right, but I had no idea how wonderful that change would be." Cole lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You saved my life that night, Emma, in more ways than one. I was lost, running from pain and grief with no real direction. You gave me purpose, gave me a home, gave me everything that matters." "You did the same for me," Emma replied. "I was stuck in a rut, living day to day without really thinking about what I wanted. You woke me up, made me see possibilities I'd never considered. You made me brave enough to reach for happiness." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from blue to gold to crimson, the New Mexico sunset as spectacular as always. Around them, the land was peaceful and prosperous. Their children were happy and successful. Their grandchildren were healthy and growing. It was everything they could have hoped for, built from a foundation of love and partnership forged in lamplight on a desperate October night. In 1905, Emma and Cole celebrated their 28th wedding anniversary. All three of their children came home for the occasion, along with their spouses and children. The house was full of noise and laughter, of grandchildren running around and adults catching up on each other's lives. After everyone had gone to bed, Emma and Cole sat up late by the fire, just the two of them, as they'd done so many times before. 28 years, Emma mused. Sometimes it feels like forever, and sometimes it feels like yesterday. "I know exactly what you mean," Cole said, pulling her close. She rested her head on his shoulder in the spot where she'd once stitched a bullet wound, where a faint scar still remained as a reminder of how they'd found each other. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different?" Emma asked. "If you hadn't been shot, if you'd made it to Colorado, if those outlaws hadn't come after you?" "Sometimes," Cole admitted, "but only in the way you wonder about roads not taken. I can imagine other lives I might have lived, but I can't imagine any of them being better than this one. You're my great adventure, Emma. You always have been." Emma lifted her head and kissed him, a kiss that still held the spark of that first touch in the lamplight, but also the depth and richness of nearly 3 decades of love and partnership. The years continued to pass, bringing the usual mixture of joy and sorrow that makes up a life. There were more grandchildren, bringing the total to 8 by 1910. There were health scares and recoveries, business challenges and triumphs, family disagreements and reconciliations. Through it all, Emma and Cole remained each other's constant, their love the bedrock upon which everything else was built. In 1915, at the age of 61, Emma was helping Caroline in her medical office when a young woman came in with her husband. He'd been in an accident at one of the mines and had a badly wounded shoulder. As Emma helped Caroline prepare to treat him, she felt a rush of memory so powerful it nearly took her breath away. The lamplight, the blood, the careful work of cleaning and stitching, the moment when her fingers had touched Cole's and everything had changed. She looked at the young couple, saw the fear and love in the woman's eyes as she watched her injured husband, and felt a profound sense of connection across time. "He'll be all right," Emma told the woman gently. "Dr. Brennan is excellent at this. He's in good hands." The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He's everything to me. I don't know what I'd do if I lost him." "Then stay with him," Emma advised. "Let him know you're here. Sometimes that makes all the difference." She helped Caroline through the procedure, holding instruments and offering the kind of calm, experienced assistance that came from years of helping with medical emergencies. When the surgery was complete and the young man was resting comfortably, his wife beside him holding his hand, Emma slipped out and walked home through the quiet evening streets. Cole was on the porch, as she'd known he would be, waiting for her. She climbed the steps and sat beside him, taking his hand in hers. "What is it?" he asked, always attuned to her moods after all these years. Emma told him about the young couple, about the flood of memories it had triggered. "It made me realize how incredibly lucky we've been. That night could have ended so differently. You could have died. Those outlaws could have killed us both. We took such risks and it all could have gone so wrong." "But it didn't," Cole said firmly. "We found each other, we built this life, and we've had 40 years of happiness." "That's not luck, Emma. That's us choosing each other every single day through all the challenges and changes. That's love that lasts." In 1920, Emma and Cole celebrated their 43rd wedding anniversary. They were in their mid-60s now, officially old by the standards of the time, though both of them were still active and engaged in life. They'd turned over the day-to-day operation of the trading post to James and his oldest son, though they still helped out when needed and enjoyed staying involved. Their evenings were spent on the porch, watching the sunset, talking about everything and nothing, holding hands the way they always had. They took walks together, visited with their children and grandchildren, read to each other in the evenings, and marveled at how the world was changing around them. The automobile had come to Red River Station, and electric lights were becoming common. The telephone connected them to family members who lived far away. The world was faster and louder and more complicated than it had been in 1876, but Emma and Cole's love remained a constant, unchanged by time or technology. In 1924, they celebrated their golden wedding anniversary, 50 years of marriage. The entire family gathered for a huge celebration. All 3 of their children were there, along with their spouses, 8 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. The party lasted all day and into the night, with food and music and stories told about Emma and Cole's long life together. During the celebration, James stood up to make a toast. "To my parents," he said, raising his glass, "who taught us all what love looks like. Not the easy, flashy kind of love, but the real kind. The kind that weathers storms and celebrates joys and shows up every single day. The kind that starts with a touch in the lamplight and lasts a lifetime." Everyone raised their glasses and cheered, and Emma looked at Cole with tears in her eyes. "50 years," she whispered. "Best 50 years of my life," Cole replied, kissing her gently. "And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." As they entered their 70s, both Emma and Cole began to slow down physically. Cole developed arthritis in his joints, especially in his left shoulder where the bullet wound had been. Emma's eyesight wasn't what it used to be, and she had to wear spectacles for reading, but their minds remained sharp and their spirits remained strong. They spent more time together than ever, just the 2 of them in the house Cole had built for Emma all those years ago. They talked about their life, about their children and grandchildren, about the changes they'd seen in their long years. They held hands and watched sunsets and told each other, "I love you," every single day. In the spring of 1926, exactly 50 years after that fateful night in October 1876, Emma and Cole took a trip out to the spot where the old trading post had stood. It was gone now, replaced by a more modern building, but they stood there together and remembered. "This is where you saved my life," Cole said softly. "This is where you changed mine," Emma replied. They stood there for a long time, holding hands, 2 old people who had loved each other through 5 decades of marriage, who had built a life and a family and a legacy from a moment of connection in the lamplight. Cole died peacefully in his sleep in November of 1928, at the age of 77. Emma woke one morning to find him beside her, his face peaceful, his hand still holding hers even in death. She sat with him for a long time, crying and talking to him, thanking him for 51 years of love and partnership and joy. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by Cole Brennan. His children spoke of his kindness and wisdom, his grandchildren of his love and patience, his friends and neighbors of his integrity and generosity. But Emma knew the real story, the one that mattered most. Cole had been a man who stumbled into her life wounded and desperate, and who had stayed and built something beautiful with her. He'd been her partner, her lover, her best friend, her everything. Emma lived for another 3 years after Cole's death, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She told stories about Cole, about their life together, about that night in the Lamplight when everything had begun. She wanted them all to know, to understand what real love looked like. She died in her sleep on an October night in 1931, exactly 55 years after the night she'd bandaged a cowboy's wounded shoulder by lamplight. Her children found her the next morning, peaceful and serene, with a slight smile on her face. In her hand was the gold ring with the turquoise stone that Cole had given her 54 years before. They buried Emma beside Cole in the cemetery overlooking Red River Station, under the vast New Mexico sky they'd both loved. The stone marker read, "Emma and Cole Brennan, partners in life and love, together always." And in a way, they were together always. Their story lived on in their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, in the trading post that still bore the Brennan name, in the lives they'd touched, and the love they'd shared. The story of how a wounded cowboy and a brave young woman had found each other in lamplight and built something lasting, something real, something that proved love could conquer any obstacle and survive any challenge. It was a love story for the ages, born in the Wild West, forged in adversity, and sustained through 51 years of marriage. It was a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, that fate works in mysterious ways, and that true love, the kind that really matters, is about partnership and respect and showing up for each other, every single day, no matter what. Their great-great-grandchildren still visit that grave sometimes, standing under the New Mexico sky and thinking about Emma and Cole. They think about a night in October 1876 when a simple act of kindness and a moment of connection changed everything. They think about how love can start with something as small as a touch, fingers meeting over bandages in lamplight, and grow into something so powerful it echoes through generations. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Emma and Cole are together still, holding hands and watching sunsets, their love eternal and unchanging, a testament to the power of choosing each other every single day through all the challenges and joys that life brings. Their story stands as a reminder that the greatest adventures often begin with the smallest moments, that true love is built on partnership and equality, and that some connections are so powerful they transcend time itself. The Brennan family continues to thrive in Red River Station, running the trading post that has evolved into a successful general store and outdoor supply business. The original house that Cole built for Emma has been preserved and still stands, now a historical landmark that tells the story of the town's early days. Young couples sometimes visit it, touching the porch where Emma and Cole spent so many evenings together, trying to absorb some of that lasting love for themselves. In Red River Station, when people talk about what real love looks like, they still tell the story of Emma and Cole. They tell about the cowboy who was shot and the woman who saved him, about fingers touching in lamplight, about a choice to stay that changed 2 lives forever. They tell about 51 years of marriage that proved love isn't just about passion and romance, though there was plenty of that, but about partnership and respect and building something beautiful together. And on quiet October nights, when the lamplight glows warm in the windows of Red River Station, old-timers swear they can sometimes see 2 figures sitting on a porch, holding hands and watching the sunset, their love story continuing on into eternity. It's just a legend, of course, but like all good legends, it contains a truth that matters, that real love never dies, that the choices we make in moments of crisis can echo through our entire lives, and that sometimes, if we're very lucky, we find the person who makes us whole, and we have the courage to stay. Emma and Cole's story reminds us all that love is worth fighting for, worth risking for, worth building a life around. It teaches us that true partnership means being equals, supporting each other through challenges, celebrating each other's triumphs, and choosing each other every single day, no matter what comes. Their love, born in lamplight over a wounded shoulder, proved that the strongest bonds are forged in adversity and sustained through commitment, that the best love stories aren't about perfect people, but about imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. And so their legacy lives on, in the family they created, in the town they helped build, in the countless lives they touched with their kindness and generosity, and in the story that continues to be told, generation after generation, about how a cowboy and a woman met one October night in 1876, and how a simple touch in the lamplight changed everything forever.